And we are live. It's your favorite insurance agent, Darnold Jr., and this is FinLit Live. This is the show where we talk about financial literacy. So if you have any sort of questions about the mindset on how to elevate your finances, definitely get your questions prepared because this is the show. I'm curious, where is everybody tuning in from? Like, type in the chat if you're from Houston, if you're from California, where you're from. Go ahead and type in the chat where you're from. And if you are watching live, put hashtag live. If you're watching a replay, watch hashtag replay. I'm super excited for 2023 because we have a great lineup in store. This gentleman, he is a coach. I talked to him for 15 minutes and my mind was blown in the 15 minutes I talked to him. And so he definitely has a lot of value to add to you guys. So I'm super excited to bring him on. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get lit. All right, so without any further ado, let's bring on our guest speaker, Nahchon. What's up, Nahchon? How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the show. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I appreciate you for taking time out your busy schedule to be on the show. Go ahead and introduce you. Who are you? Where are you up to? And where are you from?
Okay, I am Nahchon, the developer. I am a mind, life, and business strategy. So, welcome to the majors. If those three things are taken care of, nothing else really matters. I am from Chicago originally. I moved out here about 8 years ago from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I've been doing mind, life, and business coaching for the last 20 years.
Excellent. Wow. How do you get into that? That seems like a huge leap forward.
That's a that's a very interesting story because I got into this by accident. It really started. I used to do a lot of training and creating church programs for troubled youth and connecting them to the Boy Scouts of America and to different church organizations doing training camps. So after I was doing one of these training camps, what ended up happening was one of the folks from the Boy Scouts says, "Hey, I got an opportunity for you. I don't know if you're interested in it, but could you write a program for women who have been on welfare for generations?" So I sat there and I thought about it. I said, I don't know if I could, but I'm not going to turn down the opportunity. So yeah, let's get it done. So when I stepped out and I
Wow.
started writing this program for these women that was on welfare, we got $3.5 million from the federal government and created this whole
Nice.
program. The program, one of the things about the program was we're getting 20 to 30 new women every month for 3.5 years. So it had an 85% success rate of getting these women off of welfare. So
That's awesome.
long story short, that was not a good thing for my career because the
Oh,
state of Minnesota was not pleased with those numbers because those numbers impacted the state budget, which I didn't know at the time when I was
oh.
doing it, that the state of Minnesota at that time was getting $33,386 and some change per person, not family that was on welfare.
What?
Yeah. So you thinking
Wow.
I'm taking off families, and the average person, women that came to my class, she had 3 kids. So if you run the
Wow.
numbers, I'm getting 20 to 30, and the average woman has 3 kids. I'm hitting their budget really hard, and they were not happy with that. So fast forward, my team that I had at the time is like, okay, you got us fired. Good job, great job. However, now do for us what you did for them, and that's how I started this.
Wow. Sounds like
Yeah,
that could be a show in and of itself, just talking about how to get people off that generational welfare.
yes.
So stay tuned for that. Hopefully, we can have you back on as a guest on
Oh,
the show just to
oh,
talk about that.
love to come back on it for the talk about that because that's what's the basis of my the program that I've been running now, which is like I said, MLB, mind, life, and business. If your mindset is correct and you understand what that's really entails to have a correct mindset. Many people say, "Well, I'm positive, I'm optimistic." Oh, that's all good, but it's not just about being positive and optimistic. It's about understanding how to program that mind. And then when I presented this program to the state of Minnesota, they loved it because it says there's no way this is going to work the way he thinks it's going to work. We got to spend this money. Yes, but it does because if the mind is right, your life falls in order in whatever business you're in, which is you are the CEO of your life. So therefore, everyone that's listening and on, you are all CEOs. And that's what I do. I help you become the best CEO.
That's awesome. Well, today's topic is even phenomenal, just like the topic that we're going to bring you on in the future to talk about. But the
Okay.
mindset for financial elevation, like you said,
Mm.
it's all about the mind. It all starts in the mind. So let's explore that. Tell us about that. What is the mindset for financial elevation?
The mindset for financial elevation is first and foremost, and a lot of people are going to probably say, no, that's not right, that's wrong. They're going to argue with the statement, but I want you to really listen to what I'm about to tell you. To elevate yourself financially, stop thinking about money. Start thinking about purpose, start thinking about passion, and start thinking about what problems you can solve consistently. Then your financial status will be elevated. The problem that I've encountered with so many folks is they're focused on money. And then when you're focused on money, it's amazing how money begins to elude you. When you're focused on all the little nuances, okay, well, I got to do this to make more money. I got to make more money. No. How many problems can I solve? How can I do it consistently? How many people can I improve and help in that process? Now you have exponential growth. And then after you get the exponential growth, well, actually before you get the exponential growth, the next level of elevation for your finances is, what am I going to do with the increase? So you ask yourself a couple questions. Why do I want more money? What am I going to do with it? Who am I going to benefit with it? And what is it going to cost me as far as time, socially, physically, mentally, and spiritually? That's how you elevate yourself financially. It's not about looking at, okay, I got to make more, because that's going to put you on a cycle of defeat. And what I mean by that is you're going to take these steps going for something and you're going to get defeated, deflated, because every time you take that step and you're not getting where you want, you're going to say, oh man, this is wrong. But if you focus on problem solving, helping, and being passionate and consistent and intentional about it, you'll win out every time.
Wow, that's huge. That's exactly what I teach my team for our insurance agency. It's
Okay.
like it's all about problem solving. So, what if somebody is like, they're like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but where do I start? Like, what problem do I solve? Like, how can I make money off of solving problems?
Well, the first thing you want to look at is, what do you do naturally? What is something that you just wake up, breathing, doing, and you take it for granted because you're always doing it? It's like, I don't really care. I just do this. So for me, I've always been coaching, strategizing, helping people to become their best version since I was a kid. I didn't realize it was going to be a career for me, but it just was something that kind of developed naturally. And I do this. I could do this for free if I didn't have bills. I could do this for free if I didn't have kids or grandkids or whatever that next future is going to hold, or wife. You were doing something for free. So start thinking about what is it that you love to do and how many people are pulling on you to do that. There's people pulling on that gift that's inside of you already. So start looking at that and then begin to explode that. And when you explode it, you want to explode it this way. You want to say, all right, I love doing this. Who's asking for it? And then create what we call an avatar profile. What does that person's consistently look like? Where do they go? Where do they shop? What do they like? And why do they want you to solve that problem? And that would be the beginning of it.
Wow. So, creating an avatar. I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually really familiar with that concept. So, like when you're creating an avatar, how do you create a very detailed avatar where you know exactly who your target market is, who you're going after, and how do you find these avatars after you create your avatar on paper?
Well, the first thing you do for the detail of the avatar, you want to create the psychological aspect first. How do they think? So, for example, you create it for my ideal client. My ideal client is a female between the ages of 35 and 45, makes around $100,000 a year in their business or as a CEO, is looking to improve, expand their reach in the community. So when I start thinking about that, I start going, okay, where's these folks? Where is this woman showing up? Is it at the gym? So what gym would she typically go to? More likely, she's going to be at a Lifetime gym, and she's not going to be at a Gold's gym. Where does she typically buy things? She's going to more likely buy from a Neiman Marcus or Alf Saks, these places. And so that's where I'm getting this personality profile from. But I'm going with the psychological aspect first. And then when I start looking at that psychology, now I can develop a strategy to reach them. Say, okay, this is where they are, so I need to be where they are and message them for what I know they're looking to answer or problems I know typically they will have. And that's how you execute it. But you start with the mindset first, because that's going to tell you how they move. And then you don't have to get into you can get into the gender, you can get into demographics of your gender. But first, you may have your avatar may be very generic, where it's non-gender, because your product serves both male and female. And so it says it's male and female. However, they're going to be in these places, in these spaces. And that's how you want to explore that a little bit further. And then look for them in those spaces to make sure that when you do your test, that they don't align. Like, oh yeah, I found X, Y, and Z people there. and then go further into it. Just keep getting deeper and deeper into that avatar.
That's huge. And so the more descriptive you can be, the better. But the nice part too is you don't have to just create one avatar, correct? You could create
No,
multiple
create
avatars
multiple
if you have.
because your product may answer multiple questions, may solve multiple problems, and help multiple people. However, you cannot help everyone, and you're not called to everyone. So you want to have this specific avatar because that becomes your target. In marketing, so that's your target market. You want to say, this is the person I'm going for, but you notice on a bullseye, you have rings outside of the rings, and those we call auxiliary markets. So you have your specific avatar that you're pinpointing on, then you go to the auxiliary market. And you have to, each one of those rings has an avatar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's back up a little bit. So when it comes to mindset for elevation, what do you find have been the biggest hindrances for people not going to their next financial place?
Fear. I would say fear. The number one thing that stops everyone from getting to that next level, whether it's in running faster on if you're a track star, lifting more if you're a weightlifter, moving to that next financial level, is fear. And what that fear is, it's not a fear, what I call true fear. It's a made up fear, which is anxiety. True fear is clear and present danger. There's an animal coming at you that can kill you. That's true fear. Well, the fear that we create in our mind about getting to that next level is an anxiety. It's made up. And that made up fear is very powerful because our psyche says, I'm not able to get to that next phase because. And then you tell yourself a story, whatever that story may be. My family never got there. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have enough experience. Whatever lie you tell yourself is the one thing that's going to build into that anxiety. It's going to prevent you from getting to that next phase. So how do you overcome that? First, you have to jot down the lies. The lie is that I don't have enough experience. That may be true. Can you find the information though? And if you can find the information, start applying that information. I may not, no one in my family's ever done it. Okay, great. You be a pioneer. Look for things and reasons to do what you love to do and you eliminate the excuses of why you're not able to do it. Because when you start putting excuses in there, you actually building a mountain of anxiety, which will create this fear, and that'll stop you every time, no matter what it is. Paying off debt, for one thing. Think about paying off debt. Well, your debt's 100,000, 200,000, 50,000, 30,000. Doesn't matter what the number is. If you say, I don't know if I'm ever going to pay this off, then guess what? You will never think of a solution to pay it off. If you say, you know what, I'm going to pay this off in the next 2 years. And your mind automatically clicks in and begins to find solutions of how you can do it. And that's how you overcome. And that's how you elevate your finances, by having an open mind and thinking about what I can do versus what I'm not able to do.
Wow. Sounds huge. So it's like more of an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality.
Correct. We know
Because
that there's more out there than what we see, because what we see is not all there is, but we're always looking at what we see as the standard instead of saying, wait a minute, I know there's more. I see people with more. What do I need to do to produce more for me? Don't emulate though. I'm gonna tell people this: do not emulate other people, because what they had to go through to get there is not going to work for you. You take the information and then you customize it to fit for you. But do not emulate, do not repeat what other people's done without at least testing it on yourself to see, can you continually do that? If you're not consistent with it, it's not going to work no matter what it is.
wow, you just nailed a big key right there: consistency, consistency, consistency.
Yes, you got to be
One of
consistent.
my favorite little articles is the common denominator of success, and it states that successful people form the habit of doing the things that
Mhm.
unsuccessful people don't like to do.
That's
And
true.
one of the key words there is habit, right?
Right.
Is doing it even when you don't feel like doing it, right? So
Yeah,
that's
because the
huge.
habit is being consistent. Consistency, we think about consistency as I got to do the same thing every day the same way. No, no, not actually true. Consistent means I'm making efforts to improve in this direction on this path every day. So you may say, all right, I'm going to test this methodology of paying off my debt. That didn't work. The consistent part is paying off the debt. And so you're looking at everything that you could do. And then when you develop a plan that works for you, then you can say, now I can repeat this. But before you find that solution, it's test and measure. I did this. What was my result? Did I like it? Was it desirable? Was it undesirable? It wasn't undesirable. Let me make an adjustment, but I'm still moving forward toward that goal of getting the debt paid off. That's the consistency. You don't lose sight of the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing.
That's huge. Wow, that's so huge. These are golden nuggets. We appreciate you for dropping these nuggets. Is there any other hindrances people have when it comes to the mentality to be able to go to that next level financially? Obviously, you mentioned
Yes.
fear.
Oh man. The number one hindrance, and this is the sad part, but it's the truest part too. The number one hindrance that people have from getting to that next level in their finances is them. The lies that they told
Mm,
themselves based off the people that they spent time with that didn't make it. They're well-intending, well-meaning friends that said, you know what, I couldn't do it. Your parents couldn't do it. Your whatever couldn't do it. What makes you think you can do it? Well, I'm
wow.
going to tell you what makes you think you can do it because you have a desire to do it. So stop letting you limit you from getting there. You use fear and anxiety is actually your crutch. You will create this anxiety mountain of all the excuses of why you cannot do it so that you can rest on it. And so you see, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. That's why I'm not able to do it. And what I want to tell you is silence that noise, quiet yourself and say, listen, here is what I'm looking to accomplish. Here's the steps that I'm willing to take. Here's what I'm willing to give up to achieve that goal. Now, whatever you tell yourself, to yourself and by yourself is true for yourself. So if you say you cannot do it, it's true. You won't be able to do it. If you say that I can do it, and here's I'm going to develop the tenacity and the grit to go through it, you will succeed. But when you look out the window at other people doing it and they're at a faster pace or they're ahead of you, don't let that be a discouragement because you're not them and they're not you.
Mm,
You can do it, but you have to do it for you and stop fighting yourself by telling yourself, oh, I'm not this, I'm not good at that, and I failed. Failure is inevitable. Success is predictable. If you fail and get up and you continue to get up and you continue to get up, you will be a success. But if you fail and don't get up, you will never be a success. It doesn't happen instantaneously. It's a process. It's a habit.
I love it. I love it. Um, that's huge. That reminds me of a study they did. They did a study on Mensa. Like they tested these kids, and you know what Mensa is, right?
Yes, yes, I know. I'm
And
familiar with
for the
it.
audience that doesn't know what Mensa is like they test their IQ to find out if they're genius level. And if they
Yeah,
are genius level, they're able to enroll into this elite group
Mental
of
Academy
basically
Institute.
geniuses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they actually studied these kids and found out who was Mensa level IQ. And they wanted to track them to see how well they did economically in life. And so they did the study, and it was from various social economic backgrounds. So there was poor
Okay.
kids that were Mensa level, there was rich kids that were Mensa level, there was middle class kids that were Mensa level. And they figured, okay, yeah, the poor class, they're super smart, so they might not end up poor, but they might go up at least one
Mhm.
class, middle class, or even upper class. But they find out that the kids that were Mensa level that start off in poor class, they ended up in poor class still. The kids that were middle class, they end
Mhm.
up middle class. The kids
Yep,
that were well off, guess what? They end up well off themselves. And to your
absolutely.
point, I think it all boils down to that belief factor. Like if you
Exactly.
don't believe that you could go to that next level, if you don't believe you could have a solution for those problems, then you're not going to do whatever it takes. You're not going to focus on the things that it takes
Not at
to
all.
go to that
It's
next
like
level.
the elephant train. It's like how they train elephants. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
they train elephants by taking this huge, huge train and put it on the elephant's leg when the elephant's a small, small baby. And so whenever the elephant wants to escape, they feel the tug of that chain. They feel the tug of that chain. So when an elephant grows up and you're able to escape, they use a rope because as soon as they feel that resistance, they stop. Same thing with paying off. Same thing with financials. Going up that next level, you feel resistance, and you're like, "Oh, I must be doing something wrong." Or here's the one that most people don't want to talk about, but is really effective for creating this lie you tell yourself is when you have a financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make payroll. Ah,
Hmm.
financial crisis. You're about to file bankruptcy. Ah, financial crisis. Most very successful entrepreneurs have filed bankruptcy, have missed payroll more than 12 times, and
Wow.
yet they're successful because they're that resistance that most people would stop, like I'm doing the wrong thing, they broke through. So if you want
Mm.
to have that, that's why that Mensa study proves out because it doesn't matter how intellectual intelligent you are. It matters how, what I would like to say, mentally. And when I say mentally intelligent, am I going to stick to my mindset of growth? If you have a growth intelligence, you will always be able to overcome obstacles because you're going to look to solve problems. no matter what the problem is. But if you have a high IQ with a low EQ and a low GQ, which is that growth quotient, you're going to always be where you are. You're never going to get past it, because as soon as you feel resistance, you will stop.
Wow, that's huge. So it's just learning how to overcome that. And so if you need help with that, guess who will help them?
Right.
Nation
I'm
is there
definitely
for
here to
you.
help you.
Nation is your man. Like
Yes.
he'll help you
Definitely.
overcome those mental barriers of fear, those mental barriers of belief, and help you go to that next level into your next wealthy place. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach out to you? And if you want to be their coach?
Okay. If they want to, they can reach out to me. They can go to info@themlbcoach.com. They can go to my website, themlbcoach.com. They can sign up and book some time with me. We go sit down and go through. I'll give a 30-minute consultation or an hour consultation, and we can see where we need to begin. Because a lot of people say, well, I need to be more financial literate. Great. However, but you have some internal things going on with the way you communicate to yourself. So let's deal with that first, and then we move on to the other level of that. You can also you can text me at 832-273-0043. And when you text me, I want you to type in Finlit Live, so I know where you came from, and then we can create that connection as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. And just one side note, I remember when I first started off in sales, like growing up, I would ask my parents for something and they were like, oh, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. We can't afford
Mm-hmm.
that. And then when I did my first major sales position, like in the back of my head, I already had that excuse for them. It's like, oh, they
Yeah,
can't afford this. They can't
you
afford
got to
this. They
afford
can't
it. Yep.
afford this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you overcome those barriers of like your training when you're raised and you keep hearing something over and over and over, and then you project that onto other people? Like, how do you
So
overcome something like
we
that?
call that counting your clients' pockets, or counting your client's capacity for payment. We whatever you want to call it, but in essence, what it is it's your own fear being projected to others. So how do you fix that? I have an exercise that I have people do. I call write down the lie and write down the truth. So the lie is that I can't afford it. But no, it's not that you cannot afford it. You do not want to take that resource and put toward that. They may not want to put that resource toward it. So if you get an objection, they say, no, I don't want, that's too much. Well, when you hear no, I want you to think of this: next opportunity. No means next opportunity.
Mm,
It doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you didn't have the right opportunity for them at that right time with the right solution. So no is nothing on you. It's not a personal reflection of you. It's where they are. So when you hear this no in your head all the time, saying, "Well, I can't afford it," and you get ready to make a presentation, and the first thing I tell them, I teach sales training, and the number one thing I tell them first class is stop selling, start presenting, because you have a script to
mm,
run. Okay, we're going to do this, we're going to say this, we're going to say that. But if they don't follow your script, guess what? You're lost in the water. You're dead in the water, because you don't know how to overcome those objections, because that person did not follow that script. So what I say is start presenting solutions. So they say, well, I don't want this. Then this is your response. Tell me more. Then you
mm.
go quiet. They will tell you what you need so you can help them. But the more you're talking and the less you're listening, the sooner you're going to close that deal with nothing. So ask good questions and tell yourself, when you hear that voice come up from your past, or you can't, we so wait a minute, is that actually true? No, it's not. Here's the truth. I can do this because I've already done it here. Visualize, envision, and then bring that envision to create your provision. You will never create more than you can envision, and you will never import what you if you don't export. You got to export first.
Oh my gosh, we could spend all night. We're gonna have to have you back on the show. It's
Okay.
hands down. And so,
Awesome.
if you are watching, if you have any questions, go ahead in the chat, type in your questions. And while they're doing that, is there any books or resources you recommend in closing?
Yeah, I would recommend this, a real quick read. It's called Acres of Diamonds. Acres of Diamonds is a book. When you type it in, it's a very quick read. But the reason I recommend this book, because I call this is like the mindset basis. And in this book, there's a story about this guy who's sitting outside, whittling some things away, making some toys for his kids. And a lady walks up and she says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, no, I'm just whittling some things." She says, "Could you do that for me?" And at first he hesitates because he's not seeing the opportunity. And then his wife says, "Yeah, go ahead and yeah, he'll do it. Make that." So a lot of times your wealth is not in something external. Your wealth is in your backyard. And Acres of Diamonds
Mm,
talks about that. You already have what you need to become wealthy. However, you don't have the right mindset, you don't have the right structure or the right team to bring it about. But you already contain what's necessary to make yourself wealthy. Everyone does. And wealth is one of those words because it depends on what's wealthy to you. Some for may be $1 million, some may be $100 million, some may be 100,000. The number is not what dictates wealth. It's where you are with that number in conjunction to what you need and how you can predict what you can do with that those resources will determine if you're wealthy. But the one way to think about wealth is how long can you live the way you're currently living without having to go to a job? That equates the level of your wealth. So
that's
Acres of
huge.
Diamonds, first as one book. Another book, I mean, you probably heard about this book, is by James Allen. It's called As a Man Thinketh. And As a Man
Yes.
Thinketh is an amazing book. It's a very old book, but it's so relevant toward today. How you think determines where you go. So that would be number two. And then my third book I would recommend would be my book, and it's called The F Bomb: Overcoming Anxiety and Landmines. And that book would be right here.
Boom.
Yeah, I would require this book because if you're not able to unearth those things that's causing fear in your life, whenever you get that resistance, you're going to stop dead in your tracks. I don't care how old you are, how successful you've been, you will stop because you haven't dealt with that landmine of fear, i.e., anxiety that you built.
Absolutely. You and I could go along really well because honestly, I think that's the greatest testimony of what God's done in my life personally. I used to be a worry wart. I used to be stressed. I used to be anxious about everything. It was so bad.
Mhm.
My mom called me a worry wart.
Oh wow!
And
Your
so,
parents tell you
yeah,
that? That's really
yeah,
bad.
you know it's bad when your mom's like, "Man, you're a worry wart." So, but just all the things that God's taught me throughout the years of overcoming fear and like you're spot on. So I appreciate you for being on the show, and hopefully we can have you back in the future.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just let me know. Reach out. You have my information. We can connect up and talk because I do believe that when you're talking about finances, that statement alone most people are afraid of. Just finance, and then becoming
Absolutely.
literate in it. They're like, how do I understand this language of numbers? Well, it's not a language of numbers. It's numbers that you build a language with, call your financial portfolio history, whatever. So
Absolutely. All starts up here.
that's right.
So,
All in your head. Your mind is where it begins.
all right. Well, I hope you have a good evening. Hang out in the lobby while I wrap up the show.
All right. We're done.
All right. So if you got any value out of today's show, go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe to Finlit Live. The purpose of Finlit Live is I went through high school. They didn't talk about money. I went through college. I have a business degree from Baylor University, entrepreneurship and marketing. They talked about how to run a business, how to evaluate a business, how to do income statements, balance sheets, things like that. But they didn't teach me how a credit score works. They didn't teach me how to buy real estate. They didn't teach me what stocks to invest in. So that's the purpose of this show is to educate us on personal finances. So you could go to that next level in your personal finances. So if you think that's valuable, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to have guests live every Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. That way, it's not just me interviewing the guests, but guess what? We open up to you where you can get your questions answered. So we appreciate you for tuning in and tune in next week as we get lit.